Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. I never imagined that something so simple, just a favor, could change everything. But that's how life is, isn't it? The smallest things have a way of leading to the most unexpected moments. It all started on a quiet Friday evening. The house smelled of lavender from the candles I had lit earlier, and the soft hum of jazz played from the speaker in the corner. I had just finished cleaning up after dinner when my husband, Mark, walked into the kitchen, his phone in hand and a slightly hesitant look on his face. "Hey, honey, do you remember Tom?" he asked casually, though his tone suggested there was more to this conversation. I did remember Tom, Mark's old friend from work. He had been at our wedding all those years ago and would show up every now and then for game nights. He was the kind of man who had a quiet presence, never one to dominate a conversation, but always engaging when he did speak. He was also single, having gone through a rough divorce a few years back. "Of course," I replied, drying my hands on a towel. "Why?" "Well, he's in a bit of a bind," Mark explained. "He's leaving for a business trip tomorrow, and he just found out his dog sitter canceled last minute. He asked if we could look after Buddy for a few days." A dog? I had never been much of a pet person, but I didn't mind them. Still, I hesitated. "For how long?" "Just the weekend," Mark assured me. "He'll be back Monday evening." I told him it wouldn't be a problem, but I wanted to check with you first. I sighed, then smiled. "I suppose I can handle a dog for a few days." Mark kissed my forehead. "You're the best. He'll drop Buddy off in the morning." The next day, at precisely 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. I was still in my robe, sipping my morning coffee when I opened the door to find Tom standing there. He looked a little flustered, his hair slightly out of place, as if he had been rushing. Beside him sat Buddy, a golden retriever with soft, kind eyes and an enthusiasm that could melt even the most reluctant heart. "Hey, thanks again for doing this," Tom said, stepping inside. He set down a bag filled with dog food, toys, and what looked like an entire instruction manual for Buddy's care. "It's no problem," I assured him. Tom gave me a grateful smile, one of those rare, genuine ones that made me realize how stressed he had been about the situation. "I really owe you one," he said. We chatted for a few more minutes before he glanced at his watch and sighed. "I have to get going, or I'll miss my flight." As he turned to leave, I noticed the way his shoulders seemed to relax, as if knowing Buddy was in good hands had lifted a weight off him. "Have a safe trip," I called after him. And with that, it was just me and Buddy. At first, everything was normal. Buddy was well behaved, and I actually found myself enjoying his company. He followed me around the house, his tail wagging happily. That evening, as I curled up with a book, Buddy rested his head on my lap, sighing contentedly. But then something unexpected happened. Late that night, I was in the kitchen getting a glass of water when my phone buzzed. A message from Tom. "Hope Buddy isn't being too much trouble. Thanks again for helping out." I smiled and replied, "Not at all. He's a sweetheart." A few seconds later, my phone lit up again. "That's good to hear. I was worried he might miss me too much." Truth be told, I already miss him, and our late-night conversations. Something about that last sentence made me pause. I knew Tom and Mark were close, but Tom and I. We had always been friendly, but we had never really talked one-on-one outside of casual gatherings. "Well, I'm sure he'll be excited to see you Monday," I replied, keeping my response neutral. This time, the reply took longer. "Yeah, Monday feels far away." I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Was I reading too much into this, Was he just making conversation? Shaking my head, I set the phone down and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. Something about that exchange lingered in my mind. The next day, as I went about my routine, I found myself thinking about Tom more than I should have. His words, the way he had looked at me when he dropped Buddy off, had there been something there? Or was I just overanalyzing? Then in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. "Hey, do you mind if I call you for a minute?" I hesitated before replying. "Sure." A moment later, my phone rang. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Hey," Tom responded. His voice was warm, almost intimate. "I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all," I said, even though my heart had started to beat a little faster. He exhaled softly. "I wanted to hear your voice." A strange, nervous energy ran through me. This was definitely not a normal conversation anymore. "Tom," I said carefully, "is everything okay?" He was silent for a moment before he finally spoke. "I don't know," he admitted. "I think I've been holding on to something for a long time. And this weekend, knowing you're the one looking after Buddy, knowing you're there while I'm here, it's made me realize something." I swallowed hard, gripping the phone tighter. "Realize what?" "That I've always thought of you as more than just Mark's wife." My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I had heard him correctly. Tom's words hung in the air, suspended between us, their weight pressing against my chest. More than just Mark's wife. I shifted in my seat, gripping the phone tighter. "Tom," my voice was barely above a whisper. "I know," he said quickly, as if trying to backpedal. "I shouldn't have said that. He sighed. "I've kept that to myself for a long time, and I wasn't planning on ever saying it. But something about this weekend, I don't know, it just came out." I closed my eyes. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. Tom had always been a presence in our lives, but I had never seen him in this way before. And yet, now that he had said it, something inside me shifted. A dangerous curiosity, a quiet realization that I wasn't entirely unaffected. I should have shut it down. I should have told him that this was inappropriate, that we couldn't have this conversation. But instead, I found myself asking, "How long?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. He hesitated. "A long time," he admitted. "Probably longer than I should have. I never wanted to interfere in your life. You and Mark, you seemed happy." I swallowed hard. "We are happy." "Are you?" Tom's voice was gentle, not accusing, but the question struck a chord. I opened my mouth to respond, but found that the words wouldn't come. Were we happy? Mark and I had been together for nearly 3 decades. We had built a life, a family, a routine. But in the last few years, things had changed. The passion had dulled, replaced by familiarity and comfort. We still loved each other, but there were moments, quiet moments, where I felt like I was just moving through the motions of my own life. I had never voiced that out loud, never even admitted it to myself. But now Tom's question echoed in my mind. "I don't want to cause trouble," Tom continued. I needed to be honest with you. Even if nothing comes of it, even if we never talk about this again." I exhaled slowly. "Tom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. I needed you to know." A heavy silence stretched between us. Finally, I forced a small, unsteady laugh. Well, this is definitely not what I expected when I agreed to watch Buddy. Tom chuckled, the sound warm and familiar. Yeah, neither did I. For a moment, it felt normal again, just two old friends talking. And yet, beneath the surface, something had changed. Listen, Tom said after a beat. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. If you want to forget this conversation ever happened, I understand. Just say the word, and I promise I won't bring it up again. I should have said yes. I should have taken the escape he was offering. But instead, I hesitated. And that hesitation said more than words ever could. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying our conversation over and over again. I had spent years thinking of Tom as Mark's friend. But now, I found myself seeing him differently, seeing the way his eyes softened when he spoke to me, the quiet attentiveness in his voice. And worst of all, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. By the next morning, I had convinced myself it was nothing, a moment of weakness, a harmless confession. Tom was far away, and I would see him again on Monday. Everything would go back to normal. Or so I thought. Just after noon, my phone buzzed again. Tom. Would it be too much to ask if I called again? I stared at the message. I should have said no. But instead, I found myself typing back. Me? Okay. When I answered the call, Tom's voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Hey. Hey, I replied, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up. Neither was I. A soft chuckle. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. Neither do I. A pause. Then he asked, would it be wrong if I told you I wish I was there right now? I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. Tom, you don't have to say anything, he interrupted, his voice gentle. I just wanted you to know. Another silence. And then, before I even knew why I was saying it, I whispered, I wish you were here too. A sharp inhale from his end. And just like that, everything changed. The moment the words left my lips, I felt a rush of something unfamiliar, something thrilling and terrifying all at once. I wish you were here too. Tom didn't say anything at first, but I could hear his breathing on the other end of the line. Slow, deep, like he was absorbing what I had just admitted. Are you sure? His voice was softer now, careful. I swallowed hard, pressing my fingers to my temple. I don't know, I admitted honestly. I just know that something about this feels different, and I don't know what to do with that. I get it, he said after a beat. I didn't mean to put you in this position. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I minded being in this position. There was something intoxicating about the attention, about the way Tom made me feel, like I was being seen. Not just as Mark's wife, not just as a mother, or as a woman who had spent her life making sure everyone else had what they needed, but as me. I couldn't remember the last time someone had made me feel that way. Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if we had met under different circumstances? Tom asked suddenly. I hesitated. I never thought about it before. But you're thinking about it now. I let out a shaky breath. Yes. Another pause. Then Tom's voice lowered, as if he was confessing a secret. So am I. The rest of the day felt surreal. I moved through my usual routine, tidying up the house, taking Buddy for a walk, making dinner. But everything felt different, like I was living in two realities at once. In one, I was the devoted wife, the woman who had built a life with Mark, a life filled with history and commitment. In the other, I was something else. Someone else. Someone who was letting a man who wasn't her husband slip into the corners of her mind. I kept telling myself that it was just words, that a conversation couldn't change anything. But deep down, I knew better. Because it had changed something. That night, I sat on the couch, absently stroking Buddy's fur, my thoughts tangled in a web of emotions I didn't fully understand. And then my phone lit up again. Tom. My pulse jumped as I opened the message. Tom. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about you. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. Instead, I typed back. Me, same. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. Tom, I know this is probably the worst timing, but I have to ask, if things were different, if we had met before you and Mark, do you think we would have had a chance? I sucked in a breath, because I already knew the answer. And this time, I didn't hesitate to tell him the truth. Me, yes. The next morning, everything felt heavier. I woke up early, my thoughts still swirling, my body restless. As I made coffee, Buddy sat at my feet, looking up at me as if he knew something was wrong. I sighed, rubbing his ears. What am I doing, huh? He just wagged his tail. I picked up my phone, debating whether to text Tom first. But before I could decide, another voice interrupted my thoughts. Morning. I turned, startled, to see Mark standing in the doorway, stretching his arms. Hey, I said, forcing a smile. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, he muttered, grabbing a mug and pouring himself coffee. Had a weird feeling. Something inside me clenched. Like what? I asked, keeping my voice casual. He shrugged. I don't know. Just off. He took a sip of his coffee, then looked at me, studying me a little too long. Are you okay? My heart pounded. I opened my mouth to say yes, but the lie caught in my throat. Because I wasn't okay. I was caught in something I didn't fully understand, something that scared me, excited me, confused me, something I wasn't sure I could stop. And that was the moment I realized. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was a turning point. And I had no idea which way I was going to fall. The weight of everything settled on me in that moment, Mark's eyes studying me across the kitchen, the memory of Tom's words lingering in my mind, and the quiet, undeniable truth pressing against my chest. I wasn't just caught between two conversations. I was standing at a crossroads, and no matter which path I chose, something would change forever. Are you sure you're okay? Mark asked again, his brow furrowed. I hesitated, gripping my coffee mug tightly. Yeah, I said, forcing a small smile. Just didn't sleep well. He nodded slowly, but something in his expression told me he wasn't convinced. And maybe he shouldn't have been. The hours crawled by, and with each passing minute, the tension inside me grew. I told myself to let it go, to push away whatever had ignited between me and Tom. But it was impossible. His words had unraveled something inside me, something I hadn't even realized was bound so tightly. By the afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling slightly as I typed out a message. Me, can we talk? A minute passed, then another. Finally, my phone buzzed. Tom, I was hoping you'd say that. We spoke in quiet, careful words, both of us knowing we were treading dangerous ground. I don't want to hurt you, he said softly. I know, I whispered. I don't want to hurt Mark, either. I swallowed hard. Me neither. Another silence stretched between us. Then Tom exhaled. But I also can't pretend I don't feel this. Neither could I. And that was the problem. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I don't know what to do, Tom. I'm not asking you to do anything, he said. I just need you to know that if things were different, if there was ever a world where we weren't bound by timing and circumstance, I wouldn't have let you go unnoticed. His words felt like a confession, a wish, a heartbreak wrapped in possibility. And in that moment, I realized something. Tom wasn't trying to pull me away from my life. He was simply showing me something I had forgotten, what it felt like to be seen, to be wanted, to be chosen. And maybe that was why this happened. Maybe it wasn't about what I was missing with Mark. Maybe it was about what I had forgotten about myself. Who I used to be. Who I still was. Who I needed to be again. That evening, as I sat across from Mark at dinner, I studied him in a way I hadn't in a long time. The man who had stood by my side for so many years. The man I had built a life with. There was comfort in that. But comfort could sometimes make you forget that love needed to be tended to, nurtured, seen. I realized then that it wasn't about Tom. It was about me. I needed to find that part of myself again, the woman who still wanted to feel desired, alive, noticed. And maybe, just maybe, that was a conversation I needed to have with Mark, not Tom. That night, I sent one last message. Me, thank you for making me remember something important. Tom replied almost instantly. Tom, and what's that? I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. Me, that I don't want to live the rest of my life just feeling comfortable. I want to feel more. A pause. Then, his final reply. Tom, then don't be afraid to ask for it. I put down the phone, exhaled slowly, and turned to Mark. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to say what was on my mind. It wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new chapter.